生死虚実、一年のマナリ、同点剣家超無一角。
いや、
騒ぎを起こしたくはない。
ついてないね。竜、それじゃあダメだよ。はっとくるりん。
後悔しても
The next video is rated.
かは私の気分次第よ。
下手に動くな。
うちの出番。何見てるの？ふっはっくるくる。私が誰だか知ってる？こんな大きなダイヤモンドあげるね。たまには真面目に行こう。うちのとっておきを食らえ。壊れないよ。ルールは破るためにある。くるりん。
後悔しても遅い。
ついてないね。即戦即決でいこう。感謝してね。 っかく時間があるのじゃ。
They realize what's going on. Shaco isn't really an important target because of his low income and his role, so while enemies are all focused on his carries, Shaco can slip in unnoticed and completely change the fight, then able to reposition and play at a distance, going in again to pick apart the enemy team. Instead of just joining teamfights like a normal DPS threat, he just wants to ruin the fight for the enemy carry. With Ignite, Exhaust and some auto attacks, they should already be out of the fight, and thanks to the clone trick, he can even match their damage to shut them down. With the Everfrost hybrid version, he plays more like the baiting Shaco we've seen in the past, using this to waste the enemy's time and put them in a bad position. The Everfrost build is especially good if your team already has the DPS to win the game, but maybe you lack CC. And of course, it wouldn't be Shaco support without a little bit more inting. Pinkward is always happy to trade his life for any important enemy target to guarantee his team will have an advantage in the fight. Any fed, squishy champion on the enemy team is a viable target for you to jump on and make them die in exchange for you. Late game, regardless of build, Pinkward is going to end up with a ton of cooldown reduction, so at any time he's able to have 7 boxes placed down on the map, constantly placing them whenever the cooldown is up. These just give him and teammates opportunities for enemies to walk into them, and those can set up kills. To rate this pick, we need to compare it to its main competition, AP Shaco support. Compared to AP, the AD build is much more active. One of the issues of AP is that you kind of have to sit back and wait for the enemies to do something, and then if they buy a sweeper you become quite useless. AD Shaco doesn't have this problem. problem, as right from level 1 he's doing something that can help win the game, and even in lane his 2v2 fights are quite good, whereas AP Shaco needs some time to scale. You become a real DPS carry even in the support role, and you still have the utility and surprise that Shaco always has. I like this pick a lot. One huge issue is Melio, who he bans every game. Any disengaged champion like Karma or Janna is a perfect counter to AD Shaco, as any time he goes in with Q he's going to be stopped. But on the plus side, AD Shaco destroys tank supports, as he can ignore their engage and simply just jump on their AD carry instead. For his full AD Shaco build, Pink Ward starts Scythe into Essence Reaver
争いに意味はない。やっ、
こっからが本番だよ。乗ってる？
始めようか。はっ、
生死虚実、移動天元家、超無一角。はっ、
重傷じゃの。ルールは破るためにある。
こっからがハイになれ。
Or Umbral Glaive depending on his income, going Eclipse for the highest damage mythic, or Everfrost for better ganks and playmaking if your team has enough damage already. After that, if you want more damage you can go Blade, Lord Dominic's, or even Infinity Edge for maximum DPS. Or if you're playing more supportive you can still go Zhonya's to bait enemies into Wardstone for the extra wards and the bonus stats. The rune page is vital, having the Hail of Blades, also Sudden Impact for higher Q damage, Zombie Ward for vision control, and especially Nimbus Cloak as well, for more mobility to make your engagers safer. It was a pleasure to get to interview Pinkward for this, and he has a lot of AD Shaco gameplays on his YouTube channel if you want to see those. And right now he's streaming right on the edge of Challenger on his Twitch, link to both are in the description. And please also check out Final Fantasy XIV Online, our sponsor, at the link below. Thanks so much for watching.
The next video is rated.
No, 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 no.
私はリシア、あんたの雇いたがってた傭兵だ。私はリシア、あんたの雇いたがってた傭兵だ。さて。 これにしよっと。 眼差し、風、すべてがひらめきになるんだ。 いがあるんだ。それとも誤送か？
I know who I am. The moonlight lakes told me this is who you are. My vision so long, my illusion of life. That is me. I wonder what that will do. That is bullshit blazing. To my heart is blazing. If I lose my wings, I don't need a new one under you. Can't feel a thing. We already know the smell of the game. Remember, you are blazing. Still, your heart is blazing. If the world made you, I don't need a new one under you. Soon you will know. We already know the smell of the game.
ほう、向かってくるのか。
Can't you see I'm blazing? Still my heart is blazing. If the words kill me, I don't need a new world over you. My time is my word. Your words will never make me disobey. I'm bullshit blazing. Still my heart is blazing. If the words kill me, I don't need a new world over you. Soon you will know. We already know the smell of the smell of the smell of the smell of the game.
It's that time of the month again. New banners are coming, and we finally got info about what is going to be on them. The limited 5 star weapons and characters were already notorious ever since the stream dropped, but now we got info on the 4 stars featured as well, so I can make a full review on them. For context, the 4 stars featured are Kave, Fischl and Candace, while the 5 star featured are Ganyu and Baiju. While Ganyu is definitely the outcast here, if you pull for Baiju you might come out of your pulling session with a pretty good loot for Dendro teams in general. In particular, if your Fischl isn't at high constellations yet, then this banner gains more value, as one of Baiju's pros as a character is being a solid piece for Sino, Yae and Keqing Quicken teams, and Fischl is a staple on all of those. Specifically, Fischl's Constellation 6 is a sizable damage buff for her, as it adds a lot of small damage instances that gain a lot of value on Quicken teams, while also extending her odds duration per cast by 2 seconds, which again is quite valuable on Quicken rotations, where she often ends up casting odds twice. On Quicken teams in general, Fischl's Constellation 6 is around a 10 to 15% team damage gain depending on the exact composition, which is pretty meaningful for a single constellation. The other side of the spectrum for the banner is the bloom side. In fact, both Kave and Candace will mostly be useful for bloom rolls on your account, but that doesn't mean they synergize well together or with Baiju. First and foremost, on Nilu Bloom teams and other Bloom teams in general, Nahida is always a best in slot for one Dendro spot on the team, thanks to her guaranteed AoE Dendro application that really helps making the team consistent. This already makes the potential pairing between Kave and Baiju subpar in comparison, since they're two mostly single target units. Still, Kave and Nilu Bloom teams will be bound to be single target focused in general, because they are compositions that will force you to run off-field Hydro appliers, as for most of the rotation you'll be using Kave on field. Best in slot Hydro options for that role will be Yelan and Shincho, who also happen to be mostly single target focused. Basically, while in theory Baiju and Kave won't be as good as Kave and Nahida for Nilu Bloom teams, in practice the structure of the team might accommodate them nicely, while also benefiting from all the survivability effects they bring to the table. In fact, Baiju's massive healing capabilities, combined with Kave's self-healing effects tied to the Bloom mechanics, will make it pretty much impossible for you to die. Considering Kave also doesn't benefit much from his own constellations on Nilu Bloom teams, the Baiju side of the banner might be a nice opportunity to come out with a decent Nilu Bloom core with minimal Primogems expense. As I previously said, Candace is also just mostly an option for Nilu Bloom teams, while her kit could also seem useful for other uses thanks to her decent multipliers on the elemental skill and her unique Hydro Infusion buff for allies. In reality, her rotation damage output is not enough for her to fit greatly on any raw damage based team, and her Hydro Infusion isn't particularly helpful for most teams either. On the flip side, on Nilu Bloom teams, where raw damage doesn't matter much, she can find a spot. In particular, her Hydro application support is also useful here, and she's functionally a budget replacement for Kokomi, since Nilu Bloom teams that feature the latter also depend on Hydro on-field application to thrive. That said, compared to Kokomi teams, Candace teams are basically worse all the way, since not only Candace generates Hydro driving windows for shorter periods of times, but she's also more single target focused in general and doesn't provide any healing. That means you'll necessarily need a healer in one of the other two slots. Baiju can fill that role nicely, but the best option will likely be Yao Yao, since on Nilu Bloom teams, she can use her elemental burst to full extent, and provide superior application as a result. In general, Yao Yao Candace team are seen as viable options for Nilu, so if you like Candace, she has that going for her. On other Bloom teams, such as Hyper Bloom and Burgeon, Hydro Infusion is not really needed, since they are teams that necessitate of Dendro on-field application to consistently generate a lot of blooms. For the The 5-star characters, I've already talked about Baiju plenty in the past, and I plan to make a final video on him before the banner comes out, but for now, as a summary for all the things I said in the past about him, he's a good Dendro option for basically all teams, as he provides healing capabilities and has decent supportive upside and application in general. In particular, teams that need a Dendro healer as the as the other slots are filled by other instrumental units, would be Electro-based Quicken teams in general and Hyperbloom or Virgin teams. Regarding Ganyu, I just talked about her yesterday in the last video I made, but long story short, she's still a pretty decent character, although hurt by the fact Freeze isn't very consistent anymore. When the team works, it still feels great, and Melt Ganyu is also a viable option, so it's not the end of the world. Just don't expect to pull the same overpowered character you'd get if you pulled for her a couple years ago. For the weapon banner, it's pretty bad, for the simple fact that 5-star weapons on it are not good. Baiju's signature is just very underwhelming.